Hey folks, welcome to the Daily Dude. Today's random fact about you comes from north of the border. Let's take a look.
I am a mom of two beautiful, smart, wonderful teenage girls who can sometimes drive me crazy because they're girls.
That is Jenn and Kanata. You'll find a link to her random facts video and channel below.
So today is World Naked Gardening Day, which, whatever. I'd rather talk about naked gardens. Some of you may remember my little rant about Cornish cross a little while ago. Well, today we're going to get one about soil. Why soil? That's how you feed the world.
If we restore our soils 1 or 2% organic matter, we could take all the carbon that's been emitted off the last 100 years and put them in the soil. And we can feed 9 billion people. Yeah. I get so tired of hearing politicians, we got to feed the world. No, we don't. We feed our communities, and let's all teach them soil health.
That is Archuleta, who you probably come across if you've studied soil or cover crops. In this video, it starts with the soil. You can find it at Grass Fed Exchange. This is an hour-plus long talk about soil, and it's just really eye-opening.
North Carolina, Oklahoma, Ohio. This is happening all over the globe where we do tillage. Let's make it very clear. Tillage is one of the most intrusive things we do in modern agriculture. You disrupt the habitat.
So he brings in samples of different types of soil from different types of farms and runs them through a test of simulated rain and does it all right there in his hour-long talk and demonstrates the difference between tilling and not tilling and using cover crops and not using cover crops.
But see, ladies and gentlemen, no-till is not enough. It never was enough. No-till with covers changes everything. No-till stops the destruction of the soil structure, but it does not feed the system. It is covers that feed the system.
So the point Archuleta is trying to make basically is that tilling our soil is killing our soil. That's what you're doing. You're killing the soil so that you can have control of it and put whatever plant you want in there and grow it. And then we leave our gardens and our land naked. I'm in Illinois. Half the state, I'm making this up, but I'm probably not far off, but half of the state is left completely naked from October until March. Right now, the corn and soybeans are just an inch out of the ground. Meanwhile, my front yard, I've had to mow it twice. It's needed mowing again. If I hadn't mowed it, it'd be 1.5 feet tall. Now, why does that matter, and what does that have to do with gardening, letting your grass grow? Well, it's amazing to me, but we think we have to remove everything from on top of the soil so that we can garden in it. But this new method, and it's the same with back to even gardening, keep the soil covered at all times. Don't let it be naked. And so I'll stop ranting and we'll watch more video.
What I love about flipping this over is I have seen grown men cry because they say, I cannot believe this is happening to my place. Let's see how much infiltrated in that short time. Ready? Look how much, look how dry it is. And this is happening through the whole globe.
That demonstration should make every farmer who's growing corn and soybeans and everything else using a tilled system should make them cry. It's amazing to me that what he was dumping out there was a tilled land like we see all over Illinois with corn and soybeans. The water doesn't soak in. It just runs right off the top. And that's where all the chemical fertilizers and pesticides are, right at the top. They're not getting penetration either. It was sand. There's no life. There's no fungus. There's no bacteria. There's no worms. It's dead soil. You might as well be growing in, hydroponics in rock wool or vermiculite or rocks. The soil is dead. So that's the point that I'm trying to make about naked gardens. If your garden is naked, your garden is dead.
The next series of clips comes from a playlist at Living Web Farms called Soil and Diverse Cover Crops with, again, Ray Archuleta and David Brandt. In this clip, they are just rolling over 2 feet tall cover crops, grass, just rolling it over, and then what they're going to do is plant right into that cover crop within a few days. And here you see that was a rye cover crop, and those are pumpkins you just plant it right into the cover crop. Weird.
Neat thing about this is, guys, these are pumpkins. No herbicides other than the burn down to take out the fall grasses from that pasture. No fungicide treatments. A quarter fistful of fertilizer every plant, or a 5-gallon bucket full. And that white pumpkin right there is $37 and this is $17. You know?
And that's what we'd like to see, a little bit of side income for our efforts. Now, and what it's all about is mimicking nature. When we got here, where did all those rich soils come from? Well, they came from, in the prairies, in my state, they came from the grass growing to full height. The buffalo would come along, 1 day, 2 days a year, they'd chew it back down, you would have the birds chewing on it, some deer would come in a little bit here and there, lightning would strike, start a fire, that would, wipe it out and start the process over again. But what's always going on that we always seem to forget about, what's always going on to create that soil is the soil itself, or what's in the soil, the biology that's alive in the soil. That's what's breaking down those prairie grasses and turning it into rich soil. And that's what we want to mimic to produce our food. That's what we want to mimic is the full range of nutrients being available to our food. And it does so much more than that, also having the cover crop, and that will come in a later series of videos, so let's get started on those. But dude, what does all this have to do with my little home garden? You're talking about acres and acres of crops and pasture land. What about my little garden? Well, you can mimic nature in your little garden too.
Write this down. Lasagna garden.
Okay.
Lasagna no-till garden. You shouldn't have to do very little tillage. In fact, when you have a sod, I put about this much compost in that, and I smother and kill the grass. Use cardboard, compost, and then lasagna it. Put your leaves and all that, no tillage.
Okay.
And then you plant your plants right into that carbon. Cardboard is carbon.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
This next set of video clips also comes from Living Web Farms, a different series called Treating the Farm as an Ecosystem.
You could simply walk out into the bean crop, move that canopy apart. We still had a nice residue cover, and when you move that residue cover, you heard Gabe talk earlier about that temperature difference. We're going to talk about that on our farms here in North Carolina, where they're even more prolific than what he has in North Dakota. Where we had bare ground, our temperatures were about 100 to 105 degrees. Where we had the cover crops there, we were about 75 to 80. That makes a huge difference for us for soil availability. When you're planting your following crop, you should still have residue from the last year. 365 days a year here in North Carolina, we've got to keep the ground covered. We've got such a high clay content that when that water splashes on that ground, like Gabe was talking about earlier, that detachment, we run off so many nutrients. The most expensive thing for me to do as a farmer is put out phosphorus fertilizer, and 80% of that phosphorus fertilizer runs off through soil movement. So how do we do that? This is our corn crop coming up. So this is what I did. This is the tree line right here that divides my farm from his farm. This was oats, vetch, winter peas, crimson clover, and radishes. We went into there and planted our crop. That's what our corn crop looked like coming up. That's what mine ended up at, 110 bushels.
When he mentions residue, he's talking about the residual cover crops that had been rolled over and are left there. That's the residue that he's mentioning. And why that's important, he mentioned the ground, the temperature in the soil. 75 to 100 degrees, that's a huge difference. Anybody who's grown anything can tell you that's a huge difference. Especially your lettuces and kales, anything like that. If the ground temperature gets too hot, they're not going to make it. So you need that cover crop. You need something on your garden to keep your plants alive. And even if I do whatever you want to, I don't care. I can't go you out to my garden and show you how it's done. But it's just something I would like everybody to think about, especially during this summer. When the rain is the rain right now, your plants aren't that tall. Is the rain hitting bare dirt? Well, that's not the best thing for your plants. I'm going to have to edit the heck out of this. So that's something to think about this summer. How can you cover your garden? You can wood chips. Paul Gauchi is the Back to Eden guy, and that's one way to cover your garden and to keep it from being naked. Now, his success is not 1 year and you're done and you're good forever. His success came from year after year after year, layer after layer after layer after layer, building that soil, mimicking what happens in his case on a forest floor with the wood chips. But we can do the same thing with grass clippings, with leaves, with your own compost. They use, in that one clip, they use cardboard, which, as one time to get started, sure, I wouldn't do that personally, but, why not? Everybody marches to the beat of their own drum, as I like to say. So just try something new. And if you're going to till, the time to till is in the fall after your garden is done. Till it then, put down a cover crop, and then in the spring, let it go like what's happening right now. Let it go until about right now, depending on where you're at on the earth, of course. Idaho is going to be much different than Illinois. It's going to be much different than Alabama. But you get the idea. You've got time. That grass is going to grow quickly in the spring. Mine would be 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall right now. I could easily, and if it was, just thinking my soil was good, it'd be that much taller. And then you can just roll over it, flatten it out. It'll die mostly when you're doing that, but it doesn't matter that the roots are still there and the plant's still there. It doesn't matter. You can plant right into that, and it will be better for your garden than if you till it, kill the soil, and then plant into it. It's just, I hope it's something that on World Naked Gardening Day that we can become more aware of naked gardens and how, on a small home garden scale, it's not that big deal. But when half the land in Illinois and probably Iowa and Indiana and who knows where else, when half the land is sitting there naked, well, let's not get into that. So, okay, now, enough of my rant for the day. Let's get to random fact number, what am I on, 5? Yesterday, number 4 was, I was born in 1970, so number 5, and I'll pull in some old pictures here, but I was an adventurous young boy. I was in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts all the way up until high school. My parents loved camping. We were always camping. We had a travel trailer when I was small. We had a mini mobile home and then a mobile home, and we went to the Grand Canyon, Washington, D.C., Mobile, Alabama, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, every state park within a 3-hour drive of Peoria, the Indiana Dunes, Clinton Lake, Pierre Marquette, St. Francis down by St. Louis. I just grew up adventuring and traveling, and that is something I'm very thankful for. Is I got to see a lot of what is outside of my neighborhood. So yeah, that. Take care. Always use a wind filter, and never leave your garden naked. Oh, and one more thing. Let's check in. Thanks to Deep South Homestead. Let's check in on what's going on at the Great Appalachian Conference. You won't want to miss this video. Links to everything below.
Thank you to all my subscribers, and thanks for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the thumbs up, and always use a wind filter.